So, ladies and gentlemen, moving on to the next session. सुबह से हमने जो 3 major words या buzzwords कहें सुने हैं, it has been about sustainability, it's been about accessibility, it is about community engagement. और ये तीनों यदि आप अपने डिज़ाइंस में समाहित करना चाहते हैं तो ये सेशन आप सभी के लिए है. This session will share insights into incorporating sustainability, accessibility, community engagement into the design process, backed by elaborative case studies which are going to be extended by our eminent speaker. I invite our eminent speaker, Mr. Kamal Sagar, the founder of Total Environment, with a degree in architecture from IIT Kharagpur in 1992, followed by a short stint with Omni Architects at Lexington, Kentucky in the US. He returned to India to design and build the Poonawalla stud farms in Pune in a mere 8 months. In 1996, along with his wife Shibani, he founded the architectural practice, Shibani and Kamal Architects, as well as Total Environment, a construction and a real estate development company with a vision to help people live richer, fuller, more joyous lives and inspire them to make a difference. He speaks to us on thoughtful design. Mr. Kamal Sagar, founder Total Environment, and I request Mr. Jagdish Babu to please escort him here on the dais.
Okay, so I'm just going to talk about design in the context of largely housing and real estate, and I think it's important to understand how much difference good design can make to not just the final product but also to your bottom line. And but what is good design? Very often we expect design to just do something very different, to kind of stun you or zap you. That is not what is really good design. It's not about just doing something different or trying to make it look really pretty, or just to make you wake up and see something different. Good design is really about understanding the need very clearly, both the functional and the emotional needs, and then finding the simplest solution for that need. And it has to achieve that emotional connect, and it has to work finally. So, and I think the other thing is that good design is the pursuit of a single idea. It's not about trying to do things differently every time. It's about deciding on one strong pursuit and taking that maybe through your entire life. It's really about doing that. So if you see even examples like, and the more specific your idea is, the greater its appeal is likely to be. So even if you look at examples of like Apple computers or the Ferrari or Frank Lloyd Wright's architecture, it was one single thought. And I go back to something like this, and even if you go back to 1960s and then now in 60 years later, it's not about trying to do 40 different things. It's just one single idea, taking that, perfecting it, becoming better and better and better every year, and that is really what is good design. And good design is also about understanding people and making a connection. I think that is at the heart of what really good design is about. Engineers typically are concerned with the physical things in and of themselves, while architects are more concerned about the interface with those things. They are not so much concerned about the thing itself, but about how humans interface or interact with things. And there's this very nice saying by Dieter Rams, and he said that indifference towards people and the reality in which they live is actually the only cardinal sin in design. So there are very often designers who ignore the person they're designing for. They just try to create something iconic and they forget what it's really for. And I think that is, for us designers, it's the only cardinal sin you can commit, is to ignore the person you're designing for. And through good design, you can really evoke emotions. So keeping all of that in mind, we follow a set of 7 principles of good design, which is what holds everything together. How do you, you as an architect, you could have certain thoughts, but how do you make sure your team and everybody else is able to follow a single clear thought process in how you approach design? So we have these 7 principles that we use. The first principle is authenticity. Good design is authentic, always starting from first principles, using insight, creativity and courage. It takes courage to create something new, to challenge the status quo. It's a powerful combination of analysis and expression. No gimmicks, no fads or trends, just authentic design that is timeless. I think this is the most important thing in a lot of stuff that I'm going to talk about, but I think the most important is this fact that it has to be authentic. It has to come from, the solution has to come from inside the problem, not from somewhere else, not something that you saw somewhere and just, cut and paste it. It doesn't work in the long run. The second principle is of aesthetics. So good design has to be aesthetic. And if you really design it well, and if you've understood the problem deeply enough and you design it well from the core, it will be aesthetic. And if it's not, that means you haven't found the right solution. Then you go back and do it all over again. And the end result has to be, it has to give you a sense of calm. How do you define what is good aesthetics? Good aesthetics is something that gives you a sense of calm. It doesn't make you feel irritated, or it doesn't create any kind of distortion or anything that makes you feel upset. It's very calming when it's really beautiful. It's all about a sense of calm. The third principle is simplicity. Good design has to be simple, unobtrusive and restrained. Every element exists for a reason. You don't have something that just like that. It's there because there's a reason why it's there, and that's very important. And connection, good design is about making a connection. It's about understanding people and their individual needs. It must provide an experience that is joyous, fulfilling, and inspiring. It has to make that connection with the people, with in the case of housing, with the residents, in the case of offices, with the people who work there, everybody, right from people who are maintaining the building to visitors to guests. You have to think about every single person who's going to use that space and how you're going to make that connect with those people. And of course, functionality. Good design has to be joyously functional, joyfully functional. Take care of every little need of the user. So it's very important to kind of understand every functional requirement down to the smallest little one and make sure that you've thought about it in a very interesting way, not just in a very basic way, but you can make it more joyful in many ways. The sixth one is reliability. This is something very often as architects we tend to prioritize it last, but if your product doesn't work and starts giving trouble, if something starts leaking or not functioning properly, it just doesn't make any sense. All the rest of it doesn't make any sense. So good design has to be reliable. It has to be thorough down to the smallest detail, leaving nothing to chance. It deploys the best in engineering, science and technology and research, feedback loops from your customers, from your maintenance staff, standardization, again, very, very important. Unless we standardize, I think this is the biggest challenge that I see in the construction industry as against other industries like manufacturing, is that there is no standardization. So we keep making the same mistakes again and again, even after 15 years and 20 years of doing things. We just have to find ways to standardize everything, every little detail, whether it's your windows or doors. Like for example, all our windows are always 900 or 1050 or 1200, then you don't have 1175 window. So you have to standardize so that you can control everything, the sizes of the glass panels or all of that. So standardization is very critical, and continuous improvement. So you have to find a way to make sure that your new building is better than the previous one. So what are you doing to make sure that you've translated those learnings into the next building and you've improved? Because unless you do that, we're just going to stay where we are. And the last one, but not the least, is sustainability. Good design is in harmony with nature, always ensuring that we achieve our own needs without compromising the needs of the future generations. I think that's very important to keep that in mind. All of us have children who are growing up and getting into the new generation now. And let me talk also about the process. How do you actually go about designing? What are the steps to ensure that you do all these things? So the first step is defining the goals. I think very often, actually this is the most important part. We tend to just assume that the design brief that you're giving to an architect is whatever it was in the last project, so many number of units, and so much FSI, and maybe whatever facing and stuff like that. But this is the most critical step, defining those goals for the architect, defining clearly what exactly you want, what kind of vision do you have, and sometimes you need to question those goals. And the architect, if he's good enough, will also question those goals with you and not just accept whatever you're saying, because that is the time to do that. You can't do it later once it's already in the design stage. So very important to really think out those, the goals for the design, the exact design brief, and what you want to achieve. Conceptualizing, I think it's very important not to, when you're starting to design, and this is more for the architects, but never draw a shape like a rectangle on a floor plan and start making things work, because that will just take away thousands of other opportunities that exist in that. It's always important to understand the activities, understand the spaces first before you start putting down rectangles and squares and circles. That's the last thing that you should do. So, and space planning is not about just arranging spaces to meet functional requirements and decorating them. For an architect, the objective is to create experiences that are beautiful. So you're always thinking about how the spaces are going to be used. So for example, there are positive spaces and negative spaces. So spaces that are defined by clear boundaries are positive spaces, which is where people tend to hang around a lot more. And spaces that are open are negative spaces, which typically get used for movement. People use that for circulation. So it's important to recognize how you're thinking about the whole thing and how you're planning it. The third is, once you've done with the conceptualization, then it's about really getting into the details. It's the little details that make the big differences, the little details that create joy. If you just leave it at the basic functional level, that's one way, but that would give you an average product. But if you go down into small little details and think of them very uniquely, you don't have to, there doesn't have to be too much logic and sense in it. You can think about, what if I design this set of stairs for a bridegroom who's going to be coming down, and how should it be? It could be anything like that, but that creates very interesting details, very interesting features, and ideas can come from anything. It doesn't have to be a straight line process of thinking. And then of course engineering. This is something that is again a very, very huge issue in our industry. Unfortunately, unlike the automobile industry, where even a tire of a car goes through huge amount of engineering. It's not just rubber, it's got hundreds of different components. In our industry, we're using the same old materials, the same marble, the same brick, the same cement and sand. Nobody is doing any engineering. And unfortunately, there are no courses in our colleges that teach you anything about marble flooring or about, painting or anything like that. So there is very little engineering that goes into what kind of paint, what kind of material, the mortar bed that you're using under the marble, under different circumstances for, different locations in the country where the salt content in the water is different. So engineering it well to make sure that it continues to work after a long period of time is important. I know many of these things are very difficult, but as a community, if we all work towards it, we will be able to have many more happy customers. I was just in a conversation outside just now, and we were all complaining about how customers call up for this leaking tap at 10 o'clock in the night and things like that. But that's very kind of standard and expected in our industry. But why should it be? It's not the case with many other. You look at a laptop, which is something that's probably 30 or 40 years old. Buildings have been around for 4,000 years. But it doesn't give you any kinds of problems like that. But a house, a simple thing like a home, has so many basic issues, very, very basic stuff. Your electrical working properly, the pressure in the faucets, the temperature. It's just, there's a lot to do there, and I think a large part of that is just engineering it well. And then coming to what is good design in the context of housing. So for the longest time, design in the housing space was limited to just decoration and styling. So, besides somebody like Moshe Safdie, so when I studied architecture, in the whole world, the entire planet, there was only Moshe Savdi's habitat building in Montreal in Canada and Charles Correa's Kanchenjunga apartments in Bombay were the only two examples of good architecture in the housing space. There was nothing else on the entire planet. These were the only two buildings. I'm talking about just 1992 when I graduated. And, you know, typically the word apartment would bring to your mind something like this, right? Where, a space where you could possibly live, adjust and somehow manage. It's not something that you really look forward to. It's, and while you could, I've just taken random pictures from the net. So, but you know, you can you enhance these spaces with expensive art or chandeliers and whatever, but the inherent nature of the space is such that it's just very uninspiring. And on the other hand, you have examples like this. This is a 1,500 square foot house. It's a glass cube, glass rectangle in the US, in Chicago, which is built on an 80-acre plot. And all around, from anywhere inside the house, whatever you see in all the directions is only nature and green. Or Frank Lloyd Wright's famous Falling Water House, which is built on a live waterfall on 234 acres of land, actually built on a real waterfall where you can, you know, sit on the steps and put your feet in the water. So the question is, how do we create something like that? How do we create that kind of an experience within a city? Why can't we do it? So how do we you know, create that kind of a thing? So that's how I'm just going to show some examples of what we do, but this is how our company was born. We're basically architects, but it was the desire to create that led to the birth of Total Environment back in '96, with a vision to inspire people to make a difference. And these are just some of our work. This is an office building with a courtyard in the middle with all the office spaces opening out to it. We bummed up the earth here up to 1 floor, so the building looks like a 2-story building when it's actually 3, as you can see on the right side. Or another building in Indiranagar in Bangalore, very small building with just 16 apartments. Here, these are apartments that step down, terraced and open to sky gardens. Again, a very small building with 16 apartments. Small little details like, you know, not touching the stairs to the stone wall so that there's enough place for cleaning it well. Or again, gardens like these with these are very small apartments, 1,200 to 1,600 square feet, but each one has a garden of about 200 square feet and a little sit out, and you have people growing trees and all kinds of things on those gardens. This is a building in Pune where there was a big, huge tree, and we designed the building around the tree. It's a College of Engineering, Pune. Just kind of wrapped the building around the tree, and the tree goes through the courtyard. We actually also had a bridge to connect two parts of that curve, and so that you can actually walk on the bridge and touch and feel the tree. So one of the branches of the tree comes through the bridge. This is another example of, again, a very small building with 10 apartments, but gardens going in an S shape in different directions, so you get double height. And again, just connecting with nature, this same building, on the other side, it faces the Bangalore golf course. So the idea was, how do you bring in that beautiful, the greens and the trees and the golf course into the room, into the apartment. So all the apartments have a 30-foot long stretch like this with floor-to-ceiling windows in the living room. So you kind of directly connect at all the levels. Very simple stuff, nothing much. It's just very, very strong focus on what experience you want to create. And that's about it. These are green roof homes with green roofs, which make the whole place feel so much more green. This is the inside of one of those homes. Again, similar thing in Hyderabad, the renders and then the actual homes. But the idea really is to be able to connect with nature at all levels and just feel that connect and enjoy that space. You know, even the bedroom opening out to its own garden like that on a higher floor. Just some samples of work. This is a apartment building on Kanakpura Road in Bangalore with about 72 apartments. Every apartment on every floor is like this. It has its own 400 square foot garden, water body and little wooden deck. All the spaces open out onto that deck so that it just feels like a home. It doesn't feel like an apartment, it just makes you feel you're at home. That's about it. That's what the living room is like. And this is another project in Whitefield. These are 6,000 square feet apartments in the center, and then 2,500 on the ends. So those are the apartments on the top and bottom floor. So they are, again, the idea is to make them feel connected with nature. And then these are the villas opening out. The whole idea, again, is to connect at every level. And then these are the green roof villas in the same project. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And to present the memento, I would like to invite Mr. Y.V. Ramana Rao to please join us here on the dais, to thank Mr. Kamal Sagar. And as he mentioned, its designs is not only add to the aesthetic feel, but also influence the functionality and the experience of spaces.